What is the evolution of the Eagles' offense? There's one man to ask, the football scientist, Joyner from The Athletic. One thought every game, Eagles and Jags coming up. And you look at Jalen Hurts in this past game, Casey, where they're going and who they're facing this week. Are we going to see the evolution of Jalen Hurts, the progression he's making, turn into another big day? Where on Monday, we're all looking at Jalen Hurts having one of those big games.
I think we're going to look at it. He's had big games, 5 rushing touchdowns the past 2 weeks. He has big games. Fantasy managers love that. But from a passing perspective, I think we always talk about Sirianni, former wide receivers coach, organization that likes the idea of, hey, passing the ball is the way to go. And yet they need to be a run-first team because it's who they are. But that doesn't mean if you have favorable matchups, you don't go for the favorable matchups. This game, the pass coverage matchups are fantastic. I give you 2 quick metrics. I measure things on a fantasy points per game basis, just as a good parameter for overall performance. Jacksonville over the past 4 weeks, since week 5, 29th in tight end fantasy points per game, and they are 29th in vertical points per game. They are just terrible on long passes, and they're terrible at covering the tight end. By the way, they have some weaknesses covering wide receivers too. But this is a matchup where if you've got bad safety play, that's a matchup you're going to say, hey, we need to get Hurts to try his deep passes and try to shore up the passing game or get it to be a bigger weapon. This is a game to do that.
Right, so it looks like they can, last week, after you came on Friday when we broke this game down, we said look for Grant Calcaterra to be able to find some room against the Bengals. It feels like if Calcaterra could be a part of this offense as well, and, pretty much they can pick whatever receiver they want here. This is, for whatever reason, this is a very porous defense, 28 points per game. So it sounds like you think the secondary can be had.
Yeah, even you look at an individual coverage perspective, Andre Sisco, their free safety, he's allowing 16.5 yards per target. I know he only gets hit with vertical passes. That's really unacceptable, even for a safety. You got Savage, their nickel cornerback. He's averaging, He's averaging 12.6 yards per target. On Tarek Brown, 8.8 yards per target. Antonio Johnson, 9.5 yards per target. A couple of players who are doing a little bit better. Darby's at 6.9, but even he's allowed a touchdown on a 108.9 passer rating. So it's like you have to avoid the guy. There's nobody in their secondary where you say, other than maybe Tyson Campbell, he's got really good metrics. If you're looking at metrics of the past 2 weeks, he can pretty much throw it everybody. And Campbell's due to go up against A.J. Brown, so you say, fine. Put Campbell on Brown, and maybe we don't throw Brown as awesome. We get Smith and we get Calcaterra, and we get the rest of the offense going. And again, maybe we just get Brown off of that matchup and get him going. Yeah, if the Eagles – I would be surprised if the Eagles, depending on how the game flow goes, don't throw 35 times this game.
All right, I was going to say 35 times you're saying there, because I was going to say last week they ran 39 times. They only threw 20. The week before, they only threw the ball 14 times. So is this another day where they can say, hey, let's get Saquon Barkley or Gainwell or even Will Shipley if they feel like it?
They can, and the thing is, can they run the ball too? Jacksonville's not exactly shut down against the run. They're 16th in running points per game on planned rushing plays, allowing 3 yards per rush. So it's one of those situations where, maybe we don't run the ball as often as we might otherwise. They're okay on sacks. They get 10 sacks in their last 4 games, but they only have a 29.9% pass pressure rate. That's 25th in the league. It's like either they get the sack or they get nothing. So they're not going to get after your quarterback. You can run the ball fairly well. And again, the Eagles have such creativity in the ground game, and Barkley can turn a bad play into a good gain. He's able to do that in a lot of different ways. You add those elements in there. You add the fact that they don't have anybody in their secondary who could cover. Their safeties are bad. It's just one of those situations where if I'm Jacksonville, I'm trying to figure out how do I slow this game down, because I find very few scenarios where the Eagles don't score 24, 27 points at least, and then you got to say, okay, can the Jaguars keep up?
Yeah, their defense gives up 28 a game. They're not great against the run. They're not good against the pass. Is this a shootout type of game? Casey Joyner, let's look at the Jacksonville offense. They're missing a lot of weapons. Lawrence has been turning the ball over. We don't know who's going to be at wideout. We don't really know what the running game looks like. So can they keep up in his shootout if they have to?
They've got even bigger problems. They want to try and who's the best receiving threat right now? Maybe a healthy receiving threat. Kevin Ingram. The Eagles are 5th in fantasy points per game of the past 5 weeks to tight ends. Okay, maybe they want to go on vertical passes. Maybe they want to say, okay, we're going to throw the ball deep and try and keep up that way. The Eagles are 1st in the league at fantasy points allowed on vertical passes since week 5. 7 out of 21. They allowed 7 completions, 21 attempts, 33% completion rate, 166 yards. That's only 7.9 yards per attempt, no touchdowns, one pick. You can't go vertical on him. You can't go to your tight end. Your receiving core is entirely banged up. I'm looking at it going, this is not a good scenario for Doug Pederson to be coming back. Because about the Eagles cornerbacks, we talked about Cooper DeJean earlier this week, 5.4 yards per target. Mitchell, 4.2 yards per target. Blankenship, 6. Darius Slay, 6.9. If you're anywhere at 6 or below, you're kind of considered shut down, or it's like a really unfavorable matchup. And if you're close, if you're 6.9, you're darn close. And nobody, and even their pass pressure or their passer ratings allowed, most of them are under 80. And in today's day and age in the NFL, if you're allowing under 80, or if you're like Gardner Johnson, 55.6, that's really hard to throw against. So even if they were healthy, matchup-wise, this is not a good matchup for the Jaguars.
All right, so when you're back on Tuesday, it'll be the trade deadline. Has the Eagles' pass rush done enough for you to trust them? Do you feel that they have enough, that they're good enough, or does this game help determine that? Because I think that's the one question with this defense. Can they get to the quarterback against a good team?
We'll have a real good answer after this week, because the Jags, in the last 4 weeks, they're 5th in the league in sack percentage allowed, and they're 3rd in the league in pass pressure rate allowed. So if there's one area where they might be able to hold up, or they should hold up, it's that. If the Eagles can't, again, if you've got a very favorable matchup, what I consider a red-rated matchup, so maybe you don't have a great game rushing the passer. Can they put a good game up rushing the passer against this kind of matchup? If they can, then if Eagles, then you go, okay, well, maybe we'll use this as a litmus test for do we need to get somebody else or not. If they don't do very well, then you know, all right, if we want to make a run at the Super Bowl here, if we want to take this chance, but we need to go out and try and upgrade the pass rush, because this is a team that you're not going to get a great pass rush against. You better be able to get a couple of sacks and some pressures and things. Because if Lawrence sits back there, even if you got great coverage, if he sits back there and you don't get any kind of pressure against him at all, he's going to be able to make some dangerous throws. And those numbers we talked about earlier, I think it's a lot harder to do. If you get 3 or 4 seconds throwing the ball, you get Lawrence being able to scramble around there, your coverage is going to fall apart at some point.
All right, Casey Joyner, one thought every game. That's a look at the Eagles and the Jaguars matchup. We'll get his thoughts on who wins and why in just a minute here or so. Let's get into this week's edition of One Thought Every Game here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Let's go to the Cowboys and the Falcons. Interesting game here. Cowboys with a loss, they would have a 3-5 record, which would match their loss total of the previous 3 seasons. They were 12-5 of each of the last 3 years. So it looks like this team is dipping off a little bit. The Falcons, if they win the game, it would be the first time they've gone 5-1 or better in a 6-game stretch since all the way back in 2017 for the Falcons, which is the last time they made the playoffs. So is this Falcons team a playoff for real team, and is Dallas a non-playoff, not for real team?
Dallas Cowboys over the past 2 weeks have allowed 417 yards on the ground. And go, well, that's just atrocious. But then you look back in weeks 2 and 3, they allowed 464 yards on the ground. This defense makes mistakes. They don't line up well. They don't play anywhere near their talent level. And the offense, Dallas has no ground game. I mean, they've rushed for none, 53 and 56 yards each of the past 2 weeks. They have 10 turnovers, 10 giveaways in the past 3 weeks, and they have 1 takeaway in the past 3 weeks. This is a really bad team in Atlanta. They're not a great team, but they're a very good team. And if you give them a defensive matchup like that, I think Bijan rushes for $125 in this one. Atlanta wins handily.
Ooh, Atlanta wins handily, says the football scientist. All right, Dallas and the Bills, little AFC East, Sunday, 1 o'clock. Bills 9 straight home wins against division opponents. That includes the playoffs. Dolphins have lost 8 straight games in Buffalo, including the playoffs. The last time they won, Christmas Eve 2016. Where were you?
Here with my kids, I imagine. The Bills, 3 giveaways all year. It's incredible. I mean, this is Josh Allen. He forces passing. Not this year, he doesn't. They've rushed for 149 or more yards in 3 of the past 4 games. They've allowed fewer than 100 yards rushing in 3 of the past 4 games. They have at least 2 takeaways in nearly every game this year. I mean, the thing is, their defense is doing better. The run game is doing better. Their passing game, Shakir, like, hey, we're bringing in Cooper. He's going to be – Shakir's looking great for them. He's doing a fantastic job. They're finding alternate targets. So they've got more than enough weapons to stop a Miami offense that didn't look anywhere near as good as you thought when Tua returned last week.
One thought every game. Let's go to the Raiders at the Bengals. Bengals 0-4 at home this season. They got bombed at home last week. Their longest home losing streak since 2019. Raiders have lost 4 straight games going back to the postseason in Cincinnati. Last time they won, 1995. Jeff Hostetler was the quarterback. WVU, owner of Hostetler's Bagels in Morgantown, West Virginia.
That's an awesome reference. Raiders, 700 or fewer rushing yards 5 times this year. They can't run the ball worth a darn. And the Bengals, they are iffy against the run, but I don't think the Raiders will take advantage of it. The Raiders turn the ball over far too often. They've got some coverage weaknesses. Burrow's had not a very good last 3 games. Fantasy-wise, you take away that long touchdown against the Giants, he's doing nothing. So, but I think they still have enough firepower in their offense. Like I'm looking at Burrow and Chase and going, the Raiders don't have anything to match that. So I'll take the Bengals.
All right, one thought every game. You got Chargers and Browns, defense of the Chargers. Chargers allowed 17 points or fewer in 4 straight games. They haven't had 5 straight since 2007. Is this the team they could do it against? The Browns, season high, 29 points, 401 total yards in a win against the Ravens.
It's a big difference for them than Jameis Winston because this is a vertical-based passing offense. Run the ball, throw vertically, and Watson, for whatever reason, wasn't very good at it. I don't think he wanted to take chances. I think he was afraid of making mistakes. Jameis Winston's not afraid of making mistakes. He threw 30 interceptions one year. I think that they'll throw the ball. They'll have success throwing the ball more than they would have, and it does change what their offense is. But the Chargers are a really good defense. They rate well in nearly every category, pass defense, run defense, and they can still run the ball too. And mind you, their passing game isn't great, but it's gotten better. So I think the Chargers just have enough to win. I think the Browns do better, but I'll bet you know what. In fact, that's the thing. The Chargers have 5 games they've not thrown any, have not had any takeaways, any giveaways, I should say. They're not going to have a giveaway in this one probably, and that's going to be the difference.
All right, this is not a good game. One thought every game. Patriots and the Titans. Patriots seeking back-to-back wins for the first time since October of 2022. The Titans lost back-to-back games by at least 20 points for the first time since 2014. They haven't lost 3 straight by 20 or more since October 2009. That's not going to happen here against the Patriots, is it?
Man. Yeah, these are bad teams. This is there's not a good quarterback in this matchup. They don't run the ball particularly well. I mean, the Titans, they're going to wear out Tony Pollard. They always got a foot injury already. They've just ignored the idea that he said before he shouldn't be a bell cow back, and they don't care. They keep giving it to him. So they're not paying attention to it. Their defense, again, they've allowed 86 points the past 2 weeks. Good offense. I think the Patriots are under good offense. But the thing is, if you're playing defense that poorly, and the Patriots, as much as bad as they play, they look better against the Jets last week, and I still think they're a better defense. So I'll take the Patriots, but it's like I could coin flip and go the other way too.
Ugly game there. One thought every game. This is usually the ugly game in the NFC East, but the Commanders are seeking their first 7-2 start since 1996. They went 9-7 that year. They did not make the playoffs. Giants 0-4 at home this year. They averaged less than 8 points a game at home. They haven't been 0-5 at home since 1974 for the G-Men.
Can the G-Men run the ball? Tracy, I haven't seen the latest report, but he's got the concussion. If he can't play, he got Singletary. Tracy's got some breakaway skills that Singletary doesn't have. So it's, okay, can you get that? It could be key because 3 times in the past 5 weeks, Washington's allowed 176 or more rushing yards. The thing is, they've rushed for 168 or more yards in 4 of the past 5 weeks. They've rushed for 214 or more yards in 3 of those games. I mean, this is a really good running team. They've got their passing game going, too. They moved the ball well against Chicago, 481 yards, only 18 points. I think against the Giants, that 481 yards turns to a lot more points. And I just don't see the Giants getting anywhere near enough offense. I'll take a Washington big.
All right, one thought every game. Casey Joyner from The Athletic. Let's go to the NFC South where the Saints are at Carolina. These are 2 bad teams, too. The Saints lost 6 straight games after going 2-0 to start the season. It's the longest losing streak since 2005. They haven't lost 7 straight since 1999. The Panthers have given up 30 points in back-to-back home games. I don't see how the Saints scored 30 in this game.
They get Carr back probably, so that's good. They've got Kamara, that's a plus. They've got Olave, that's a plus. I mean, they've got some weapons, and I think, after you've got Carr instead of Spencer Rattler, your offense can, now we can get back to the kind of offense, not maybe in weeks 1 to 2 when they scored 91 total points, but they can move the ball a lot better. Kamara's banged up, too. They need to kind of move some carries away from him. These teams keep running, burning the running backs. So it's like, guys, you can't do this. Not everybody's Derrick Henry. Even Derrick Henry has an upper limit. We found that out a couple years ago, so be careful. But the Panthers, they still got Bryce Young out there. They're not going to make a change. I guess they could switch to Dalton, but nope, they're going to stick with Bryce Young. I get why they're doing it. I sort of get why they're doing it. I really don't, but we've seen what he is. So I'll take the Saints because they have an actual quarterback.
I didn't realize Olave Olave definitely playing? Is he? If he's back, that gives him a shot. I guess their receiving core was pretty limited without Shaheed and him. Boy, oh boy!
It looks like he is back. Yeah, he doesn't
Okay.
look like he missed practice this week. So,
All right, one thought every game: Broncos and Ravens. Interesting game all of a sudden. Ravens 24-7 though when opposing teams start a rookie quarterback under John Harbaugh. You know he's been the coach there since 2008. Bo Nix 5 wins this season, most by a rookie starting quarterback in Denver Broncos history.
problem for the Ravens is they get into too many shootouts. I mean, they've been in 5 of them this year, and that's where each team scores 24 or more points. And again, as you would expect in shootout games, I've said over the years that the shootout games are 50-50 propositions, even for the best offenses. Actually, excuse me, they've been in 4 of them. And they're 3-1, but that's good. But they almost lost some of the other ones. They lost the 26-23 game, just short of a shootout mode. So it's one of those things where it's not a good place to be against Denver because Denver's got a really, really good defense. I mean, they face some bad teams, but they also shut them down the way a really good defense should. And the Ravens had some coverage issues. I'm still going to take the Ravens, but man, I think this is going to be a very, very close game, a lot closer than is generally thought by the sports books.
All right, one thought every game. Let's go to Chicago and the Cardinals. 2 number 1 overall picks, by the way. 2 straight win for the Cardinals. They're in first place. First time they've won consecutive games since 2021. Their last 3-game win streak was 2021. They won 7 straight games. The Bears, they're 0-3. They average 14.7 points a game on the road. They're 4-0. 30 points a game in all other locations. That includes a London win as well. So can the Bears get enough points on the road to knock off the first-place Cardinals?
First-place Cardinals. That seems it's odd, but 3 out of 4. You beat the 49ers, beat the Chargers, and a healthy Dolphins team. That's saying something again. They're well-coached. They play hard. They're going to do. They're finally getting Harrison in the vertical game. Murray's a terrible vertical passer. When they get the ground game going, they're getting the turnovers under control. I mean, they have at least won in all but 1 game, but they didn't have any last week, and they don't have any more than 1. They've only done that once. They had 3 turnovers against Green Bay. Every other game is 1, so they keep the turnovers under control. The Bears do the same thing. The Bears have kind of their shaky defense. Again, they gave up only 18 points last week, but they gave up 481 yards. So they give a lot of yards rushing and passing. I think Arizona is a tough road trip. I just don't think it's the kind of matchup to where a lot of teams don't fare well when they have to go out there. So I'll take Arizona being the home team.
All right, Arizona, first place. Keep that in mind in that NFC West. All right, let's go one thought every game. Probably the game of the weekend here. This is the Lions at the Packers. 12-3 combined record this season, tied for the second highest combined winning percentage in these 2 teams' matchups ever. That's over 60 years. The Lions won the last 2 games at Lambeau Field. They haven't won 3 straight at Lambeau since all the way back in the late 80s, early 90s. So this is a tough spot for Detroit historically here.
It is, but this is a different Lions team. Last 4 games, 42, 47, 31, and 52 points scored. They get into shootouts too, but if you get in a shootout with them, again, they've got great backs, great receivers. I mean, think about it. Laporta's not doing much in fantasy football this year, and he had the best fantasy tight end season by rookie in NFL history, broke Mike Ditka's record. He's kind of an afterthought this year. That shows you just how much firepower that offense has. And as good as Green Bay is, Love's banged up, and they've got, Jacobs is good, but they don't have anybody else, and the tight end isn't quite as good, and the receivers as good as they are. If nobody who's as good as Ross St. Brown, I just keep looking at going, I tend this towards shootout mode, and as good as the Packers are, they do 2 things. They're not quite as explosive as the Lions, and Love definitely turns the ball over a lot more because the Lions only get only 5 turnovers all year. So I'm going to take the Lions in this one, even though it's at Green Bay.
All right, one thought every game. Kind of interesting NFC West game. Rams, all of a sudden, they got their weapons back. Seahawks have been struggling. Rams are 6-2 in division games since the start of last season. That includes a season sweep of the Seahawks team. The Seahawks are 1-4 in their last 5 games after starting the year 3-0. This is a team that has they got bombed last week at home. So do the Rams go on the road and win against the 12s?
And think about it. You lose to Detroit in week 4. That's okay. You lose to Detroit at Detroit. You lose to the Giants in week 5. You're Seattle, like, wait a minute, losing to the Giants and giving up 29 points. Then you lose to San Francisco, a division foe you should do better against it. You didn't. They beat the Falcons. Good, impressive women. And the Bills came out there and destroyed them. And mind you, they're giving up a lot of yards on the ground. Their ground game's not doing well. Talk at Seattle, even though they've got Walker, their ground game's not doing well. Geno Smith is kind of regressing. He's not playing quite as well as he did. And again, the Rams, they got Nakua. Kupp didn't do a whole lot last week. He had a solid game. He didn't do a whole lot, but he didn't get fully integrated. I think they get him back to fully integrated. And the matchup between Kyren Williams and the Seahawks, again, the Seahawks run defense, total mismatch. I'm taking the Rams.
All right, likes the Rams in that one. Sunday Night Football, you can listen to this game on 97.3 ESPN after the Eagles and the Jaguars. Of course, the Jags and Eagles were supposed to be the Sunday night game. It got swapped out for this one, and the Vikings are seeking to avoid the sixth team in the Super Bowl era to start 5-0, then lose 3 straight. Of course, a quarterback change in Indianapolis. Joe Flacco, ESPN analytics give Indianapolis a 64% chance to make the playoffs now. It was only 46% with Anthony Richardson. So we got a better Sunday night game than the Eagles-Jags.
Yeah, more competitive. I put it that way, definitely more competitive. But the Vikings, Aaron Jones, it's a good matchup for him because the Colts haven't stopped the run very well. So for the most part, they only had 96 yards last week, but they've had problems stopping the run this year. The Colts turn the ball over a lot. Flacco, I mean, again, he gets a lot of he gets the passing game going. They still haven't got Pittman going this year, though. But he gets the passing game going. He does tend to turn the ball over, though, so that's a problem for them. And the Vikings had that same issue. So, I mean, it's one of those things where are the Vikings, are they going to get back to what they were? Because they really haven't got Addison going. It was Hockenson. Does he make an immediate impact, or does it take a little more time? And you can only funnel so much through Jefferson. So I'm looking at this going, I think this is a pseudo shootout matchup. And because it's in Minnesota, I'll give it to the Vikings. But, I mean, if it was Richardson, I'd give it to the Vikings pretty handily. But with Flacco, I think the Colts are going to keep this a lot closer.
All right, let's go to Bucs and Chiefs Monday night. The all-time series is tied 7-7. Someone has to take the lead. The Bucs are 0-4 in primetime games dating back to last season. The Chiefs have outscored opponents by 50 points this season, the second worst point differential by a 7-0 team. So not a dominant 7-0 team, but this is a banged-up Bucs team.
And the Bucs defense is the worst in the league right now. Our secondary is the worst in the league right now. They have, I mean, just abysmal coverage metrics. It's just about across the board. Their coverage metrics are terrible. They're terrible. They're worst in vertical passes, 31st in tight end passes. You look at all their cornerback numbers; they're just awful. Patrick Mahomes hasn't scored 20 fantasy points in the game since the middle of last year. I forget what the count is now. I think it's like 12 or 13 games, 14 games, something like that. It's been a long time. It's a career high. He hasn't done that. He's going to get there this week. They're going to get their offense. They're going to get passing game going. I think Worthy's going to have a big game. Hopkins will have a big game they did last week. Kelsey, he had his first big game last week. I think they'll hit on all cylinders there. And mind you, Tampa Bay is going to throw the ball a ton, and you're going to get. They're going to get a lot of passing yards. It's going to be kind of empty calories because that Chiefs defense is a really good defense, and they're going to make plays when they need to. So I'll take the Chiefs by double digits.
All right, there you go. One thought every game. Week 9, it starts tonight. Casey Joyner from The Athletic is back on Tuesday. Looking back at one thought every game of the Week 9 slate. And, of course, you can listen to the Eagles and Jaguars. We'll get your thoughts on that one. Who wins, and what's the ultimate matchup that is the reason here?
The ultimate matchup is everybody in the Jacksonville secondary against the Eagles passing game. Again, I think Sirianni wants to pass when he can. If he sees a good matchup, he's going to want to do it, not because he likes to, but because you want to make sure that you keep your passing game operating. You can show teams, if you give us a weak matchup there, if you give us something in the passing game, we can take it and beat you with it. So this is a defense and a matchup where they can. I think this is I don't think that if this is a road game, if this is at Jacksonville, I might think it's a little bit closer, more of a trap game. At home, I don't think Eagles will see this as a trap. Plus, again, Pederson coming back, there's something there with the organization because, like, we want to win this to make sure we show we made the right coaching change move. So I don't think they'll overlook this game to win handily.
All right, Casey Joyner, we appreciate you as always, pal, and we'll talk to you on Tuesday.
Sounds good, man.
And, of course, Casey Joyner is brought to you by Elite Acura. Some incredible savings all month long at Elite Acura. Visit them on Route 73, Maple Shade, or online at EliteAcura.com. That's Casey Joyner's One Thought every game